All right, so today we're diving into a really fascinating and, let's be honest, pretty controversial text, Magic Bullets. It comes from that whole pickup artist world, and what we're going to do is pull apart the system it lays out, piece by piece.
So, you see the title, Magic Bullets, and you think you know what it's about, right? But the author, who goes by Savoy, throws a curveball right at the beginning. He says the title is actually ironic. This book isn't about some secret line or trick. Nope, it's a whole system, something he claims anyone can learn.
Okay, so here's the plan. We'll start with why it's called the magic bullet, if it's not one. Then we'll get into the evolutionary ideas it's built on, look at its core framework, this emotional progression model, dig into the specific tactics like demonstrating higher value, see how it all works in practice, and then zoom out to look at the whole controversial blueprint.
All right, first up, the ironic magic bullet. The whole point here is to understand why the book positions itself as a complete system and definitely not a quick fix or a shortcut. So, the book uses this really great analogy. Sports. Think about a basketball team. Do they win just because of one special play? No, of course not. They win because they've drilled the fundamentals: dribbling, passing, shooting. The argument here is that dating is the same. It's all about mastering the fundamentals of social skills. If you get those basics down, the specific play or opening line you use, well, it doesn't matter nearly as much.
Okay, let's move on. Section 2, the evolutionary foundation. This is the why behind the how. You got to ask, where does all this come from? Well, the entire system is built on a very specific interpretation of evolutionary psychology.
The basic idea presented is our brains are basically running on old, outdated software. Seriously. The argument is that the things we find attractive today aren't random. They're driven by these deep-seated biological impulses that got hardwired into us way back in prehistoric times. And of course, that world is long gone. So if you look at it from this evolutionary angle that the book proposes, everything boils down to one thing: reproductive success. You see these goals on the screen: surviving, mating, protecting offspring. According to the system, a successful social interaction is one where you signal that you're a really good bet for hitting these evolutionary targets.
Okay, so you have this evolutionary theory as the foundation. What do you build on top of it? Well, that brings us to Section 3, the emotional progression model. This is the real meat of the system, a step-by-step blueprint for how to navigate social interactions.
And here it is. The model is laid out in these 7 distinct stages, and they have to happen in order. It's designed to be a clear path, taking you from the very first moment you approach someone all the way through to a relationship. The key idea is you can't just skip a step. You have to complete each phase to get to the next one.
So what keeps this whole thing moving? The book calls it emotional momentum. Think of it like a shark. It has to keep swimming or it dies. The idea is that an interaction works the same way. It has to constantly be progressing through these stages. The moment it stalls in one place for too long, it's over.
So, the big question is, how do you actually create that momentum? How do you move from one stage to the next? This brings us to the core tactic of the entire system, and that's demonstrating higher value, or DHV for short.
So what is a DHV? It's basically anything you say or do that communicates attractive qualities. The goal, according to the system, isn't just to be liked, it's to actually raise your perceived social value in that specific moment. The theory is that this increase in value is what triggers attraction. And this is where it gets really granular. The system doesn't just say, demonstrate value. It breaks down how to do it and even ranks the methods. Look at this. The absolute best way, 5 stars, is when she sees it for herself. It's observed. The worst? 1 star. That's when you just tell her yourself. You know, what we'd all just call bragging. Everything else falls somewhere in between.
Okay, so demonstrate value, but what kind of value? The system lays out these 8 specific qualities it calls attraction switches. And if you look at them, health, humor, status, confidence, each one is basically a modern-day proxy for something that would have signaled high survival and reproductive value way back when. It all ties back to that evolutionary foundation.
All right, let's get practical. Section 5, the system in action. We've seen the theory, we've seen the model. Now let's look at some of the actual tactics the book suggests for using this stuff in the real world. So you're at stage 1, the approach. How do you even start a conversation with a complete stranger? That's a huge hurdle for a lot of people. Well, the system provides a whole toolkit of scripted conversation starters. They're just called openers, and they come in different flavors. You've got your opinion openers, which are indirect. You're asking about something random, like this example, to kind of mask your true intention. Then you have the direct opener, which is just putting it all out there. The supposed logic behind using an indirect one is that it gives you a window of time to demonstrate some of that value we talked about before she even knows you're interested.
Okay, so let's fast forward way down the model, into the seduction phase. The book identifies this really critical moment, a potential roadblock it calls a state break. Imagine everything's going smoothly, there's a good vibe, and then bam. Something happens that snaps the person out of that emotional state and into their logical brain. Suddenly, they're consciously thinking, wait, what's happening here? What am I doing?
So how do you handle that? The system offers this 3-part model: avoid, blur, or distract. The goal is pretty explicit. It's to sidestep that logical part of her brain. You either avoid the moment altogether by, say, already being in your place. You blur the reason for going there. Hey, want to come see my cool photos? Or you just distract her. Keep the conversation flowing so her mind is too occupied to logically analyze the situation. It's all about keeping that emotional momentum going.
Okay, final section. Let's zoom out. The controversial blueprint. We've seen all the individual parts. The theory, the model, the tactics. What does it look like when you put it all together?
When you get down to it, Magic Bullets isn't positioned as just a book of tips. It's presented as a complete, all-encompassing blueprint for social dynamics, a flexible, repeatable methodology that's designed to take you from hello all the way to a full-blown relationship, no matter the situation. And we come full circle back to that initial analogy. The whole point is to reframe dating. It's not some unknowable mystery. It's a game with rules, with skills you can learn, and a strategy you can execute to, in the book's terms, win. And at the very heart of that game plan, it's that 7-stage model. That's the engine. It's a formula, really, designed to lead someone down a very specific, pre-planned emotional path. And all of this really leads us to the fundamental and, frankly, the most controversial question that a system like this brings up. Is it a helpful blueprint for connection, a map for people who feel lost in the confusing world of social dynamics, or is it just a formula for control? And that right there is the heart of the entire debate.